welcome back. Okay, for today's video I've got to do a little bit more maintenance on the Harley, and I thought this one might help you too. A while ago, you may be aware, if you've got a Softail, I did a series of videos on Softail servicing. I did all 3 oils, and during that series I made mention of changing the fork oil. But sadly, to my own end, I did end up trading that bike before I got to make that video. I must apologise. Loads and loads of you reminded me. You were looking forward to that. So here it is today, Harley Davidson fork oil change. It's a 15-minute job and there's no drama. I'll show you how it's done. Okay, here's a kit list for the job. A socket big enough to get the nut off the top of the fork leg, some brake cleaner, a couple of pints of fork oil, a funnel, a couple of measuring jugs, and a suction pump to suck the oil out. Let's get stuck in. So you have to get the front of the bike off the ground so the wheel spins freely and the fork is as fully extended as physically possible. So to do that, we strapped it down on the lift at the back with the straps as before, and a scissor jack underneath the front of the frame to just lift the bike up only enough to get the tyre off the lift by ½ an inch. That's all. That spinning wheel confirms these forks are as fully extended as possible with no weight on them at all. So once that's achieved, we can take the cap off. This particular bike's an FLD switchback, and it has a cartridge in that side and a regular conventional fork in this side. That's not uncommon for many bikes. I think Honda Pan-Europeans are exactly the same. They just have odd forks. This particular one, on the right, if you check the manual, this is a conventional fork, so what is inside here will be a spring, probably a little spacer tube, and then that will probably stick out a couple of inches, so there will be a spring out on this. So, common sense. Put your shades on, make it nice and safe for yourself. Got the socket on top, make sure you've got a good square seat on the socket, and then break the grip on that nut. Okay, just grab a rag, pop it around the top there, because as that thread breaks free, it will jump for freedom, pop out. There it goes. There we are. That's the one that's generally a challenge to get back in. There we are, I was right. Little spacer tube in there. And we've got usually a washer. Yep, there it is, little washer. And after that, yep, you'll have a spring. Now we're going to leave that there for a minute, just resting after a long squawk. Now we're going to do the other side, which is a cartridge type fork, and it's not quite the same spring out as this one. I'll show you. Okay, now, as it always pays to check the manual, it can actually be a safety issue as well, because knowing which one of these 2 forks is likely to jump out and which one doesn't is helpful. Although, take it that they both will, and you'll never make a mistake. Right, now straight away, I can tell by the fact that that thread's not under any tension. Remember, I've got the wheel off the ground. I will actually use the combination of the 2 different forks on this bike to prove a point about this sucking the oil out method, and that is that it gets all the oil out. I'm going to take the cap off first. There it is. There we are. Now that's the top of the cartridge. I have to give you now an absolute word of warning. Do not remove that nut. Never take that nut off, because that's under quite a lot of pressure. If that was released, that spring would stand about probably 6 inches higher. So if you just wind that off thinking that it comes undone and it might jump an inch, it won't. That spring will come right up in the air and that nut will really come off at speed. So don't undo that, and you'll never get it done back up without special tools. You don't need to do it for this. So let's take this one out first. Let's upend it, tip the oil out, see what colour it is and what it looks like, and then we'll do that one far easier and see if we get the same amount out as we do by turning it over. Yep, here we go. Okay, got that without any drama. Now let's just tip this into a jug and see how much is in there. Okay, there we are. And that's the stuff that came out. Now this bike is a 2012, so it's 6 years old. That is grey, greeny, gritty looking and smells of eggs, so that has definitely got to be changed. Now, interestingly enough, the only information I can find in my FLD service manual says change the fork oil at 50,000 miles. Now, Harleys don't do mileage, not generally. This is only 13,500 miles and it's 6 years old. That's just how Harleys go. So if your Harley's 5 or 6 years old and you've got low mileage, consider changing it irrespective of the fact that it's not done 50,000 miles. That, as I said, is horrible. It's kind of got gritty silvery bits in it, like gear oil. It smells of eggs. It's not nice, got a sulphurous smell to it. Definitely need a change. Right, simplest way, that was upended. As you saw, I drained it for about 2-3 minutes completely, short of actually stripping that fork apart and drying every component with brake clean and everything. You're not going to get more than a teaspoon more onto that. But what I will do is I use this. I've just chosen for this particular job Harley Fork Oil E. You can use whatever suits you. Use what says in your manual, but I'm just looking at matching that quantity. That's it. There we are. There we are. Yep. Simplest method to fill it up. So a little fun. Right, there we are. Now on the other side, this is the new method. This method, if you've got two conventional forks, will save you all the time taking that fork leg out like I just had to. So let's do that side. Okay, first thing, take the spring out because we're going to clean it off. There we go. Okay, now we'll break out the secret weapon. This will be for those of you who do not want to or do not feel confident in taking a fork leg out of your bike. Now if you don't have a cartridge leg, you don't have to. This is the solution. I got this from Sealy. It's a 1.6 litre manual vacuum pump. Now I've got a big 6 litre one which I use for the car, which you use it by basically inserting the vacuum tube down inside the dipstick hole, so you don't have to drain the oil out the bottom, and that works extremely well on the car. I did a video on that ages ago on the van, and this is exactly the same concept as that. We have a little rubber bung with a brass thread, and that's a little pump which extracts the air. Screw that on there, just finger tight, and that draws the air out of the container, and it's just a rubber wedge, as you can see, just a V shape. Just wedge that in there, that's it, and that now sucks the air out, and then obviously the only way for the air to get in is through this hole, so you're given two of these, two options, one smaller, one larger, neatly coiled. We're going to use that one. Now this is just a piece of hard plastic tube. The one that I've got, the big 6 litre one, has got a steel probe tube because it goes down inside a dipstick hole. This will still go down a dipstick hole. It's a very hard plastic tube. It's quite firm and it should do the job okay. But for this size, for what we're doing, it's absolutely perfect. And all we do is that we've got a bit of thicker hose on the end which will wedge into that hole there nicely and form a seal. It's all rubber and soft, so it all seals. And now all I need to do is insert this down inside the fork leg as far as it goes. Holding it still, just pump away. There goes it.
Oh yeah, you can see it.
Just creates a vacuum in the bottle and sucks the oil out. A little kid with a milkshake, isn't it? There we are. All the way down in. There's all the oil. Job done. Right. Now the question is to measure how much oil actually came out. Look at that. Almost exactly half a pint. There we are. To speak of in there, half a pint again, exactly the same as the other side. So tipping it upside down gave me half a pint out, and that is exactly the same. And it's exactly the same condition. Smells of sulphur, It's all greeny grey with silvery bits, so definitely needs changing. And it will be the same drill as before. Fill up the other jug to exactly the same level. It's a good idea to clean the spring off. I always just rinse them off with a little bit of brake cleaner, like that. Dry it all off. There we go. Right. So there we are. I'm going to just drop the wheel back down, put the caps back on, and we can wrap this up. There we go. Now your bike may have conventional forks both sides, in which case it's your lucky day. You can buy one of those from Celia or various other places might sell it. Once you got one of them, you can do your fork oil that easy. Just drop it down, get the wheel up off the ground, take the caps off carefully, suck the oil out and pour the same amount back in. Now this also works if your forks are a bit stiff and you want to lighten up the oil. You want to change the oil in there for a lighter weight oil, or alternatively for a heavier weight oil. If you're finding your bike's a bit bouncy and you want a bit stiffer front end, then you can do the same thing. So anytime you want to change the oil in those forks, if they are conventional style forks, just with a cap and a spring, you can change them that way. If not, then if you have a cartridge, which so many bikes do, then unfortunately you must upend them upside down, use gravity as your friend. I think that's how it works for me.
I reckon.
So there we are. I hope that helps you. That's a simple way to change your fork oil. It doesn't have to be too critical and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. The oil itself is available just about anywhere. If it's a Harley, from your Harley dealer, or if it's any other bike, you can get it from any of the oil suppliers. It's a simple component for your bike and it's worth changing sooner than the 50,000 miles that this bike was supposed to have had it changed. That's staggering, it really is. I would say every 2 to 3 years, because looking at the smell and the colour of that, I can't believe that's any good for your bike. It really isn't. So there we are. Anything else, man?
That's it, spring forward. Spring
forward. This is actually great. Take it easy. Thank you for watching Ride Safe. See you next time.